Welcome to our webinar on Summer 18 Developer Highlights on this Friday. Thank you for everybody who joined us. Today we are joined by Sushma Tiwari and Satya Shekhar, who are going to take you through the content, and I'll be your host for today. My name is Shashank. I'm a Developer Relations Manager at Salesforce. Before we start, let me tell you that we might make some forward-looking statements about features that are not yet generally available. So don't make any buying decisions based on what we're talking about today. And we're all up for social. You can always tweet us out at Salesforce Devs on Twitter, and you can also follow our Facebook and LinkedIn channels as Salesforce Developers. You can also find some amazing webinars and other videos that we have already uploaded on our YouTube channel. Feel free to check them out. And let me remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted a few days later on the same page that you used to register for this webinar, right? And there will be slides also posted there. So don't worry about that. And a few more housekeeping items. So we will do a live Q&A towards the end of the session today. And you don't have to wait until the end. So we have a questions tab inside GoToWebinar where you can keep posting your questions as you get them while the webinar is going on itself, right? And towards the end, we'll allot some time for Q&A, and we'll answer as many questions as possible. And if you have any further questions, feel free to go to our developer.salesforce.com forums. One more thing to note is there might sometimes be issues with audio and or video or slides proceeding or something. So most of the times, if you just exit the webinar and rejoin, that fixes 99% of the issues. So we can do that, and also make sure you are not using any other applications which are heavily using the internet. And that should take care of things for us. So with that, we are ready to jump into our agenda for today. So these are a bunch of topics that we're going to talk about, but we're trying something different here. We're going to present these in the form of a role play, right? So Sushma Tiwari here, who is a Salesforce consultant, is going to play the role of a Salesforce consultant here, who wants to know what's the latest for developers from the Spring 18 release. And like many of us, she did not go through the release notes yet. The release notes is too long for her to go through, but she found someone, Satya, who is a Salesforce developer, who has gone through the release notes 10 to 15 times already to save us the trouble. And Sushma is going to learn from him about the latest stuff that is here for developers today. So over to you guys, Sushma and Satya.
Thank you so much, Shashank. A very warm welcome to all of you participants. Thank you for registering today's webinar. This is Sushma Tiwari. Thank you, Shashank. Honored to be here today with Shashank, who's our Developer Relation Manager, Salesforce, and joined by Satya Shekhar, who is our Trailhead Developer from Salesforce. Of course, these two names need no introduction, as they are very well-known names in the Salesforce community for their contributions. And some of you who attend developer meetups might have had a chance to attend Shashank's session and see him in action. So with that, let's get started. But before we begin, for participants who have just joined us, and if you're having trouble with the audio or viewing the slides, you may have to exit the webinar and please join in back again. This usually takes care of the problem. So hi, this is Sushma Tiwari. I'm a Salesforce consultant. And what consultants do is we work very closely with the customers. We try and understand their business processes, business challenges, and we team up with solution architects, tech leads, and developers to come up with the best possible solutions for our customers. And we at Salesforce, one of the core values is client bliss, and we continue to strive towards this. And today we are teamed up with Satya, who's a developer, to help address some of the challenges. So Satya, I know that today you're going to take us through some of the awesome new features from Summer 18. But you know, I've been talking to some of my developer friends, and I find that they are facing some challenges from the previous releases. You know, with the onset of Lightning, everything changed. The UI to the performance to user experience. Everything changed with the onset of Lightning. And with Lightning, our developers also experienced some hiccups. So what I've done, Satya, is I have a list of questions noted down from some of my developer friends. So I'm hoping that while you are unveiling some of the great features from Summer 18 release, you also address some of these challenges that our developers are facing today. So we can get started whenever you're ready.
Definitely, Sushma. I'll be very happy to answer the questions for your developers. So you can go ahead and start your questions. So let me start answering your questions then.
Awesome. Let's get started then. So here's the first one, Satya. Lightning Experience, like we were talking before, is a very modern and more productive version of Salesforce desktop browser app. And I love the level of customization available in it and the component framework, which makes development modularized. And it's also great that these components are reusable and configurable. But don't you think it's a little painful for a developer to write a lot of code in order to just to show some data or edit a form? And is there anything in Summer 18 release that can make things easy for our developers building data forms with Lightning components?
Yes, there are a lot of improvements in the Lightning components in Summer 18 release. We have few new components that have come up, and a few components have been improved. And as you know, Lightning-based components are there in the platform for a while now. So most of the developers are got acquainted to using these Lightning-based components. So these for those who doesn't know what are Lightning-based components, I would like to tell a few points about it. Lightning-based components are predefined Lightning components from the Salesforce platform, which provide some basic functionality which you can directly use in your applications to build your applications faster. So a lot of improvements are coming, Sushma, in the Lightning-based components all through these revisions, and we have many improvements even in our Summer 18 release. So let me start with one of the base components, which is most commonly used. So when you're creating forms or applications, these are the two important components which you're seeing on the screen currently. One is record view form, which is used to display the records, and the other one is the record edit form, which is used to accept input from the user. This component is used in the forms. So these components can take other Lightning-based component fields. Like when you are creating a record view form, you'll have to use Lightning output field in order to display the records. And when you are using record edit form, you'll have to use Lightning input field to accept the records. Now we got a new component which can support with both of these functionalities together in a single component.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Let's see that.
Yes. And the most important thing here is you need not write too much of attributes as well. So you have very few attributes that are defined in the record view form. You need to specify the fields and the columns that you want to use there. So just give the field names. And just by changing one of the attribute of this record form component, you can convert your component to either record view form kind of functionality or record edit form kind of functionality. The only thing you need to change here is mode. If you change the mode to edit, it becomes your record edit form.
Wow, how cool is that?
And if you change it to read only, it becomes the display, record display.
That's amazing, Satya. Now, I discovered a new base component in a previous release called data table, which is a quick way of displaying data in a tabular form as a list of records. And this was one of my favorite features from the previous release as well. But, I wish I can make some quick edits from the data table itself on multiple records, like a list view with inline edit. And this component does not have this capability. So is there something you can do to help me with this?
Sure, Sushma. Lightning data table is most commonly used base component.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it provides the list of records in a single tabular form. You can see the complete set of records there. But one thing that was lacking in Lightning components is mass edit. Whenever you want to do mass inline edit, you want to edit multiple records at a time. That was not there in the earlier releases of the Lightning data table component. Now, with this release, you are having the support for the mass inline editing. Not only that, Sushma, we got many improvements into the Lightning data table component there. The first one being, as I said, mass eliminating. Then you can also align the data in your column horizontally.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, and you can also show the bugs at the cell level, row level, table level. This all can be done just by defining one object called error object there. And we got some new handlers, new events also introduced with the Lightning data table, for which you can write the handlers. So we have on cell change event, on cancel, and on save event. So you can use the on save event with which you can edit multiple records at a time and then save it. You can also see a quick demo that's going on your screen here. So where we are editing multiple records.
Wow, that's a very useful feature, Satya. Can't wait to try it out. Now, one complaint my developers have with the Lightning component framework is that when I have to open a different component or a page based on some actions I perform on a particular component or a page, it's not a very straightforward approach. And it needs a lot of code and leads to heavy pages or components. So Satya, can I be hopeful that there is something for my developers in the summer 18 release?
Yes. Say if you don't have proper navigation in your application, I don't think your application is a useful application. So you need some good facilities for navigation from one page to the other page, or say from one component to other page, or sometimes from one component to another component even.
Okay.
So we have one API that is getting introduced in summer 18, which is called Lightning Navigation API. You can use this component to navigate from one component to the other component, and not only that, you can even navigate to other page.
That sounds very interesting. It's one of, I think this is going to be one of our favorite features from this release for our developers.
Right, and again, your developer can also decide whether that component can be navigatable or not, just by programmatically, just by defining one of the interfaces there. We are going to see a lot about navigation API in our demos that are going to come up, but I just want to quickly show one of the illustration here with which you can navigate from your one Lightning component to one of your custom defined Lightning component. In fact, you can also navigate to the Lightning pages like knowledge article page, home tab and all. But here I'm going to show you a quick example for navigating from your source component, some component, to a custom component.
Target. Sure. Awesome, Satya. Before you show that, a quick reminder for our participants who have just joined us. And if you're having trouble with viewing audio or viewing the slides, you might have to exit the webinar and please join the webinar again. And then you should be able to see the slides. So with that, I hand it over to you, Satya. Are you ready to?
Thank you. That's how I believe you are also helping the people who are watching the webinar. Now let me go back and talk something about navigation API. As I said earlier, so for a component to be addressable, you need to first make the component addressable if you want to programmatically navigate to the component. So for that, you're going to implement an interface called isURL addressable interface. If you implement that interface, the component automatically becomes addressable.
Okay, so Satya, I see two tables there. One says source component and target component. May I also remind my participants that while you are watching this demo that Satya is showcasing, I'm sure there's so many questions that have come up in your mind. So you can please post your questions in the window in the GoToWebinar. You don't have to wait at the end of the towards the end of the webinar, and we'll take as many questions as possible. Thank you, Satya. Please continue.
Yeah. So this target component is the component to which we are going to navigate, and the source component is the component from where we are going to navigate. So as I said, you have implemented isURL addressable in your target component, and in the source component, you need to include our new navigation API component called Lightning Navigation. This is the only thing you need to do. Once you include that component, so along with that component comes an object called page reference, which has three properties which you need to set. The first property, which you can see here, called type, is used to identify to what kind of page you are going to navigate. Maybe you want to navigate to the your knowledge article page, or maybe you want to navigate it to your home tab, or maybe you want to navigate to your custom component. So you're going to set the type here.
Oh, I can even navigate to my custom component with this URL?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. In this example, you can see that I have mentioned it as standard underscore component, which means we are going to navigate to the custom component. And in the attribute, you are going to set the name of the component to which you want to navigate. And in the state, you can pass one or more parameters through which you can share information from your source component to the target component.
Awesome.
Okay. Once this page difference object is defined, you can invoke the method of Lightning Navigation API. We have a method called navigate, which takes this page difference object as the parameter, and that invokes the target component. So it simply navigates to target component. And you know what, Sushma? So once it navigates to target component, you have a user-friendly URL there in which you will get the parameters which are shared with the state. You can access those things as the URL parameters.
Sounds interesting.
And then you can use those parameters to initialize your target component. A lot of things can happen with this.
Wow, lots of good stuff happening with the components there, Satya. Hey, any other cool stuff that I can't think about? You know, I haven't read the release notes, so is anything that I missed there surprise me?
Yeah, there are many things which are coming up, but my time for this webinar is very little. Like I'm very much constrained by time. So I'd like to talk about few of the components which are coming up here. As the first one is Lightning Quick Action API.
Okay.
Many of the developers may be knowing what is a quick action. So they used to use in their Salesforce Classic, where they can create a quick action button, and with that quick action button, they can create the records or edit the records, and they can also publish it in the mobile applications and also the Salesforce Classic application. So those things could they were able to invoke those quick actions programmatically there with the Salesforce Classic API, Publisher API. But now we can also do it with the Lightning Pages. Now we can invoke the quick actions in the Lightning Pages by using our new API component called Quick Action API. And you can. And one more important thing here is your older APIs will also work. Whatever you use with your Publisher API in your Salesforce Classic, that still works. And you got a new Quick Action API here, which works in Lightning framework.
That sounds great. I think our developers would simply love that. I'm loving what you're talking about, Satya. But hey, you know what? I like seeing things in action. And I know that you put out a lot of demos together for us. So can we see a quick demo?
Yeah, sure. Before that, I'd also like to talk one more important surprise here, which is generally available. So Lightning Experience style sheets were introduced in our earlier releases.
Mm-hmm.
And this Lightning style sheet is a parameter or attribute which comes with your Apex page tag. If you set this attribute to true, then you can make your Visualforce pages, what are Visualforce pages, to have a Lightning look and feel just by setting this attribute.
Okay, so what I'm seeing right now is it a comparison between how it looks in Classic and the Lightning UI?
Exactly.
Wow.
You are right. You can see on the left side, you can see the page where my Lightning style sheets is set to false. And once I set that to true, and then again refresh my page in my Lightning experience, you can see what you can see on the right side. You can see a lot of difference in the experience, right?
Yeah, it's that's why our customers simply love the Lightning experience.
Yes. And you are asking for demo?
Yes, and I'm sure many of our participants are also eagerly waiting to see what you put together for us today.
Definitely. I'm going to show you a demo here, wherein I just want to show all the concepts and features that we have learned so far. So we have covered a few of the components, space lighting components, and also these lighting experience style sheets and all. So let me show it with a use case. We have devised a use case.
Sure, bring it on.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see.
So here we have created an application for you called Training Manager. And this Lightning application has two objects. One is workshop object. The other one is participants object. So as a Salesforce evangelist, we conduct many workshops around. So while we conduct the workshops, different participants may be registering for the workshop, just like the people who have registered for our webinar today. So we want to keep track of these participants and the workshops that go on.
Yeah.
So for this, I want to use the components which we have learned today, and then create some forms there, create some display out of it and all. To start with, let me start with the record form component. So we have created, let me show you the code there. So while this refreshes, okay, this is the code which you are going to use. You can see a component here called Lightning Record Form component. And you know what, Sushma? We are not going to write even a single line of code on the controller. So I can show you my controller here.
That's
So
a great news to most of our developers who love coding but don't really want to do a lot of coding. So I think what you're trying to say is with a minimal amount of coding, all this that you're showcasing is possible.
Right.
That's awesome. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. And you can see this record form takes few of the attributes. So we need to mention the columns that are going to use here. And you need to, these columns indicates how many, like, you can even make your record form as one columnar form or two columnar form, whatever way you want to do it. Okay. And this object API name is the object type which you're going to store there. So maybe you can use account object, you can use the standard objects as well as the custom objects there. And then you need to mention the fields. You can directly list the fields here, or you can create an array of fields. Like these are the fields. I just want to put it in my record form, and that's it. Save it. Now your record form should work straight away. Now,
how simple can that be? That's really a fantastic feature. Thank you for that, Satya. And I'm sure this demo will be beneficial for all the other co-user group leaders as well, when they conduct their meetups and people who conduct webinars. So I'm sure this is going to be very beneficial for them as well.
Yes, in fact. So now let me open one of the records from the participants. So this is what everyone knows. We have a related tab, details tab. I created one more tab for showing this in function. Like, we have just saw the code. Now I want to show it in the in action. Let us see it in action. So this is the record form. So which gets the record information. I'll just change some values here. Let me change the phone number as well, and let us save it. Okay, now you can see it is saved. Now change name is reflected here, and the phone number is also changed.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is how your record form works.
That's great.
Next, let us also see the Lightning data table that we have discussed. So I've created a separate page for it, in which I'm displaying the Lightning data table. This is a well-known table for most of the developers because they've been using this Lightning data table component for a while now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So let me show the new additions that have come up here. So we can, as I said, we can do an inline edit. Let me change a couple of values. Let me change this value to some other value, say Ganesh 2, and let me also change a Boolean value. I want to switch off this Boolean value, and I can take it and I'll remove this notify. And you know what, Sushma? This Boolean value was not supported in the earlier Lightning data table component.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
The new edition.
So it's now supported now?
Yes. Okay. Now it also supports Boolean values. That's so I can change the value here. And I'll change one more value. So I'm changing 3 records. You can see 3 records, they become yellow. And one more thing you can observe here. So earlier you did not see this save button and cancel button. Now you can see the save button here.
Right, and I also see the color coded highlighters on the page,
right,
which is simply awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Now let me save this record. Now you can see this Boolean value is gone, and this is changed the Ganesh to Ganesh 2, so on and so forth. So the values are changed.
Great.
Okay, it works. Now let me also show the code that we need to write in order to implement the save function. So let's go back to our developer console. So if you go to the console, let us refresh it once and open our participant data table. So this is the component which we are using here. So again, it takes very few attributes which you need to mention. So one important attribute we are adding particularly in this release is we are using this on save event. As I said, we have introduced 3 different types of events in the data table Lightning component in this release. Okay.
Sure.
Now you can see this on save event. I only need to write a handler for it.
Okay. I'm sure our developers at this point might have some questions. So participants, you can please post your questions in the window while you're watching Satya's demo, and I'm sure you might have some questions based on what Satya is showcasing. So please feel free to post your questions in the GoTo webinar window, and we'll take those questions later.
Sure. Now let me show the few things here. So when I have implemented a method for this handle save, so let's go to the controller. So if you see this handle save method, here the logic indicates how it is going to send that information to the server and how it is going to get the information back. Now you can see here, I've declared a variable called draft values. This draft value is an object which is created by default. So whatever rows, whatever records we are changing while editing the data table, the multiple records, all those records will be saved in a separate list called draft values. Now I need to use that list and set this attribute. I'm just setting an attribute called participants list, which is one of the input attribute for my method in my Apex controller, which is save participants method. Okay, I'm going to call that method and I'm going to send this draft values there, where I'm going to save it just by using one method, update method. You can use update, whatever database DML operation methods you want to use, you can use there and you can save the record.
Sounds good.
This is how it works. And not only that, this is a bold feature which is there from our earlier releases as well, wherein we need to mention the column names. We can give the label, we can give the field name and the type of the column, which has to be displayed there.
Right.
And then it can be set to editable can be set to true if you want the end user to edit the record. If you want to restrict the end user from editing the record, then you can even set it to false.
That's good. Okay.
And once these things are set, that's it. You go back to your data table component here, and that saves your record and it returns, and the data again comes back in your my data variable. Again, for this I have written a controller method. So I've written a method in my helper here. So this is going to talk to the server on the Apex side. It gets all the participants list where I've written a SOQL query to retrieve that list. And once the list is returned, I'm going to save it in my data.
This is some kind of a connector. Okay.
Absolutely.
To fetch
Absolutely.
data. Okay.
So using my data here, my data parameter, I'm getting the values from the Apex server and then displaying it on the table.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So this is how your data table works. Now, let me also show you how the Lightning navigation works. Let me show you with an example as well as the source code for it. So you already know how to use the record form. This is how we have used the record form earlier for creating the record.
Yes.
Right? Now, I'm going to use the same component here. I created a separate components called another component just to showcase the difference between the simple Lightning record form and when we are using navigation, what else you need to add to that form. The only thing that I added, the attribute that I added here is on success attribute. Rest of the form is same. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as I said, this is the source component. I'm going to navigate from the source component called participant record form to a target component, right?
Which is thanks for registering.
Thanks for registering.
Okay.
Component.
Sounds interesting. Let's see it in action now. Okay.
Yeah. As I said, the target registering component should implement an interface called Lightning Easy URL addressable interface. Once it implements this interface, this target component is addressable. Okay. So let's see what we are doing on the other side, source component. In source component, you are only putting this, adding this component, Lightning navigation component, and then you are going to define one attribute just to store the information about the page reference object. Okay. Now let's see how this source component is going to talk to the target component, how it is going to navigate to the target component.
That's something interesting to watch.
Yes, that we have written in the controller. Let me show you the controller code here.
Okay.
As I said, we need to populate this object, page reference object, wherein we need to set the type. Okay. In our case, as I said, we wanted to navigate it to the custom component, so I set it to standard component here, and I've given our thanks for registering component name, target component name, as one of the attribute here.
Okay.
Right, and then I just also want to send my record ID so that I can display the record values when I reach the target component.
Okay.
So I'm sending the record ID in a variable called record ID here. C underscore.
So what
underscore.
I see Satya on the screen that you're showcasing is C underscore underscore. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So that is the prefix you need to add when you are using the URL addressable components. So when you open any of the URL addressable components, you can see a user-friendly URL there, which you are going to see in a very short time when I show the demo.
Sure.
So this indicates that is the URL addressable component when you prefix it with C underscore underscore.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Now once this page reference object is set, okay, what you need to do is you need to invoke the method of our navigation, Lightning Navigation API. So nav service is an attribute which we have defined in our component here. So I defined this Lightning Navigation component with an aura ID called nav service. I'm using this ID, and then in the controller with that ID, I'm invoking the method of nav service. Okay. And I'm sending this page reference object as a parameter to that method. So this object is communicated to the target component. So target component can get the page reference value, and then it can use that page reference value to set any of its attributes. Okay. So in this case, as I said, so we got a record ID. So I just take the record ID from the target page reference. So you can see here in my controller code, I'm getting the page reference variable, and from that page reference variable, I'm getting this record ID, and I'm simply setting that record ID in one of my attributes of my target component. Okay. I'm initializing the component here.
Sure.
Once I have the component initialized, you can display the record values there. So let's see it in action. Again, let's go back to the participants and let's open one of the participant record. So here I created one more tab to show the navigation part. Here I want to edit a record. Now I have a record called Radhesham 2 here. So I want to change the name to Radhesham, or in fact I want to change the name to Radhe Krishna. Let me change the name here.
Can you make it David?
Yeah, you want to make it David?
Yes.
Sure. So I just made it as Radhe David. Okay. And if you want to change the other values, you can change those values as well. Okay. And then save it. So this is the source component which I'm using, and you can see the URL. This is the URL, Lightning URL for the source component. Sure. Now I'll just save it. So you can see that it has navigated to some other component. If you see the URL here at the top, you can see this is the new URL that is introduced in our summer 18, which says lightning/cmp/c underscore. This is our component name, target component name. And you can also see this attribute as a URL parameter. I got the record ID here.
That's a very interesting thing that you're showcasing, Satya. And for participants, if you are finding it difficult to view the screen or you're having problems with your audio, we might remind you that you might want to exit the webinar and rejoin again, and that will definitely fix the problems.
Right.
So thank you, Satya, for showcasing this.
Yeah, and with this record ID, you're displaying the values here.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. But enough of lightning. I'd like to know what's happening in the world of Einstein.
Yeah. Let's discuss about a few important things that are coming up in the Einstein. Okay, and you know what? A lot of things that are happening in the world of Einstein now. And do you have any specific question regarding what you are looking for? I'd like to understand what you're looking for in Einstein.
Well, Satya, I signed up for the Einstein Platform Services free account, and I got an API key. I tried some really cool stuff with the vision APIs and language APIs, and I loved what they can do for my customers. But however, how I can be a little clumsy, a little disorganized sometimes, and I somehow lost the key, and now I can't use it anymore. So I really wish there is a way of getting it back so that I can continue using my Einstein Platform Services again.
Yeah, it happened with me many times, Sushma.
That's good to know, Satya, because I'm not alone now.
Right. I've created almost 3 to 4 Einstein accounts. So always I keep losing my private key. I forget where I've left. So I'll have to go back and check through my mails to find my private key there. Probably should have saved in my mails. But now it's all gone. We need not really worry about it. We got a feature with which we can reset the private key of Instant platform. Okay, and this is the form which you can see on the screen. So you can give your email ID, a valid email ID, with which you would have already registered for the Instant platform, and press the reset my private key. That will resolve your issue.
Phew, finally, I get to use my account again. But you know what, Satya? I'm more of a trial and error style learner. So I use this Einstein predictions a lot. And right now we're getting 1000 predictions. But I just wish I have more predictions available per month, because 1000 predictions just doesn't work for a person like me who likes to do a lot of learn through trial and error method. So is there anything, let's hoping for a good news here?
Yes, in fact, I finished my quota of 1000 predictions within less than 15 days. Hardly I sustained for 15 days. But we have good news now in this release. These number of predictions limit has been increased from 1000 predictions to 2000 predictions.
Wow, it's like you almost doubled the number of free predictions that you get per month.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And not only that, you can also now use your refresh token to generate the access token. Earlier, we need to use our private key to generate the access token. And you know, refresh token will be there with you forever. So now you need not even remember your private key. If you have your refresh token, you can simply generate your access token and start using your instant.
That's such a relief, Satya. Well, Einstein, here I come. Okay, we are good with Einstein, and our friendship is only becoming stronger with Einstein. And Satya, coming to Apex, I think the language is really amazing and super easy to learn and use. But I do think that it has some limitations. Don't you think?
Well, it's a multi-tenant cloud-based language, so there are limitations for sure. Is there any specific limitation that is bothering you?
Well, Satya, I don't write code on a daily basis, but one of my new developers, he comes from a Java background, and he keeps cursing Apex for the lack of a switch statement.
Well, doesn't have to curse anymore. So now you can simplify your code with the Apex switch statement. You know how bothersome it is to use the nested ifs and if else statements there. So let's see what we are getting in the switch statement. Okay, so this is the syntax which you can see on the white square there, Sushma. So you are going to switch on an expression, and this expression can be anything, any data type, including integer, long, string, enum. And not only that, you can even use your subject there. Okay, and one more thing, you can even use your one of the method calls which returns any of these data types. And once you have a data type that is written there, with that value, you can handle it in different blocks of code here. You can see there are different when blocks which handle different cases, right? And unlike other switch statements in other programming languages, you need not break out from the cases here, from the when block. It automatically breaks out. Once it is completed, it comes out of the switch block totally. So you need not use the break statements here.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing. There is no fall through.
That's cool.
There is no fall through. And one more important thing is we can even use null value as one of the cases. So that's where most of the developers get some null pointer exceptions they want to handle, whatever they want to do. Okay. So even null value can also be handled here in your switch statement.
Well, that's a great news for people who are coming from non-Java background. Great.
And one more thing I want to show, Sushma, I also want to give a very quick comparison of the switch statement with your if-else statement, even before going to your next question.
Great. Let's see it in action. Can't wait.
Now you can see here, I've illustrated a simple block diagram. So on the left side, you can see the code, which can be implemented using your if statements. Okay. Earlier, if you want to work on S object particularly, this is an example with the S object there. So if you're working on the with the S objects, you'll have to check what is the instance of this object, what is the type of this object there. Okay, and then handle it accordingly. Okay. Now with your switch statement, it automatically identifies what type of S object it is. You only need to worry about what is the code that has to be written in each of the cases there. Okay, It's a very quick comparison. You can see that you need not typecast. You can see a lot of typecasting that is being done in the conventional way when we are using these statements. Now you can do it in this with these statements there.
Awesome. Great, Satya. And while we are at it, I hope Salesforce relaxes the per org Apex code limit too.
Yeah, Apex code, it was 3 MB. You can write earlier, like till now, we cannot write a class which is beyond 3 MB of size. Now you can write up to 6 MB class size.
That sounds very interesting. Awesome. So that's going to be super useful for the orgs that I'm working on, and I'm hoping there is also some work going on for relaxing some other limits too.
Any specific limits you are looking for?
Well, one of them is the debug logs limit, and my developers find it a little inconvenient.
Not anymore, because you know what? Salesforce is relaxing that limit too. Store larger debug logs with changed log limits. And here I can debug log size. Earlier it was 2 MB. Now it is increased to 5 MB.
That's great.
Yeah, and you can also store up to 250 MB of logs at a time in your org. If you want to store beyond that, the older logs will obviously be deleted.
Okay.
And one important change that has come up with the debug logs is system logs will now be deleted after 24 hours.
Oh, earlier I think it was for 7 hours, the
7 days,
availability, and now it's been reduced to 24 hours.
24
so
hours.
That's a major change there.
Yeah,
Again,
and we don't even require system logs beyond that. But still, if someone wants system logs beyond 24 hours, they are free to save it on their local system.
Thank you for pointing that out, Satya.
But again, monitoring logs haven't changed. They still are saved for 7 days. They'll be existing for 7 days there.
All right. Since we're talking about debugging now, I have one other complaint about Lightning component development and debugging. My developers need the debug mode enabled to build components, but I find that it impacts the Lightning experience performance for end users.
Well, that is exactly why we have a new debugging feature. Enable Lightning debug mode for only the users who need it. You know what? So earlier, when you want to debug, as you said, you'll have to do it for the complete org. Now you can select a specific user for whom you can enable the debug mode. So you only need to go to the your setup window and search for your debug mode, and then you can see the users, a list of users there for whosoever you want to enable. Just checkmark that user, and then enable. That's it.
That's really good. So that's the window we are looking at on the right hand side. So you have a list of all the users there, and you just need to select the users to whom you want to enable this mode for. And the other users need not even know that we are running a debug log, because that does not now affect the Salesforce performance. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And you can, with that, you know what, you can even debug your production system. So while on production,
so no sandboxes? I can do it directly in the production environment?
You can do it in your sandboxes. You can do it in your developer environment. And in fact, you can. So when you do it in your production environment, that may hamper the performance for other users, right? In the earlier days.
Yes.
Now with this specific user enabled, so the other users who are working on the platform will not even know that someone is debugging the code there. Got it? So that is the improvement in the performance there.
Wow, this release is full of surprises. Any other debugging feature or performance related features that are hiding in there in the release notes?
Actually, there are some debugging and performance related updates to Locker service. So, you know, Locker service, right? Where you can protect your code. So while protecting your code, obviously when you're trying to protect your code, there may be some performance degradation. But now with these latest releases, code executing in Docker service is much faster now. There's no performance degradation. So a lot of performance optimizations are brought in summer 18 release. And not only that, the debugging of Locker services, when you want to debug the Locker services, a lot of wrappers are generated on the top of your original code there. But now with this release, you don't need to worry about those wrappers. They're all gone. You'll be seeing the same code whether you have switched on your local service or you have switched it off.
Wow, good to know, Satya. That's really good to know. So what's next? You know, you just raised my appetite even more for new developer features in summer 18.
So have you heard about the Force.com IDE too?
Yes, I did.
Did you know what? That we discontinued it.
What? Why?
Force.com IDE Beta 2 is now discontinued because of many of our developers who have tried it. First, thanks to all those developers who have tried Force.com 2 IDE and have given their feedback. So with their feedback, we thought like Force.com IDE cannot be supported further. So we need to get some other IDE which is a kind of open standard, which can be where we can enhance it very easily. A developer can write the plugins. But one important thing here is though Force.com IDE 2 beta is discontinued, it was released in the beta version and it is discontinued, we still provide support for the Force.com IDE.
Wow, that's a very good highlight.
Yeah.
Thanks for highlighting that, Satya. So, folks, the classic version of Force.com IDE is still available.
Right. And then now we are more inclined towards the Visual Studio Code. So that is one of the newest tools and most commonly used tools. And the major benefits of this tool is you have everything in that IDE. You can see your terminal. You can also have IntelliHelp help there, and you can see your CLI. You can see your whatever. You can see your code, whatever you have. You can see your version control system. Everything is available in your Visual Studio Code. The only thing you need to do is you need to download the Salesforce extensions for VS Code.
Well, since you're talking about, you just mentioned about CLI, Satya, but you know what? Even though the Salesforce CLI is just a tool which non-developers are uncomfortable with, I just love its capabilities. And most of the things my developers need to perform during their development and release process can be done by just one command.
Yes. So before talking about CLI, I would also like to make few words or few statements about how good it is to work on Salesforce DX environment. You know what? Salesforce DX environment has a redefined process of development. So in your Salesforce Classic, your source of truth lies within the production system. So all your code is saved there from on which you'll have to work and all, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Now you can use your VCS, version control system, to store your code. And with this approach, there are many benefits that come up. The first thing is different team members can work on their own set of code. They need not disturb the code of other developers. They can check out the code from the VCS. They can work on it. And then they can also test it. How can they test it? Like, in the earlier cases, we used sandboxes. So now instead of sandboxes, in fact, we can even use sandboxes, but instead of sandboxes, we can spin out some temporary orgs, which are called as scratch orgs. And when the developer makes the changes, he can push the code into the scratch org. He can test it. Once it works really well, then he can package it, and then he can push it into other systems, other production environments, whatever it is. We are going to see that in much detail a little later. But along with that comes a CLI, command line interface there. Mm-hmm. So we also use the CLI where we can enter, rather than a graphical user interface mode, we can enter some commands to check into the VCS, to check out from the VCS, or maybe you want to deploy it onto one of the sandbox or production environment or your scratch orgs. All these things can be done by your command line interface. This comes with the Salesforce DX.
Wow, I'm sure our developer friends are really going to love this feature. Thank you.
And one more important thing here, which I want to specify is, as I said, here we can, a lot of plugins can also be created for this command line interface. So if you are not happy with the commands that are available in your current CLI, you can define your own plugins with a framework called as Open CLI framework, which is defined in Node.js. So you can use that framework and you can define your own plugins that can be applied in your CLI there.
That's fantastic. Satya, now that we're talking about Salesforce DX, a little birdie told me that Salesforce is working on a new packaging model that even customers who are not App Exchange partners can leverage. What's going on with that?
Yeah, let me talk a few things about there. So we have unlocked packages that is introduced in our earlier releases, but it was limited to the partners. We need to have a separate license that is given to the partners with which they can access the unlocked packages. Now, these unlocked packages beta is open for all the customers, and the benefit of unlocked packages here is you can um, uh, create once you develop your application, you can package your application. So there
Wow,
are two generations of packages. Now we can use the second generation of packages to create the unlock packages there,
amazing.
where you can add the components. A
Mhm.
developer can add the components, and then he can create the package. Then
Okay.
he can deploy the package on the any of the your sandbox, your production environment, or even your scratch-offs. And once it is deployed in the production environment, maybe even your administrators may want to add some more components to your package, to the application. They can still do that, and that can be pulled out by the developer and again merged into the package definitions. So now the changes can be made by the developers and also the admins when you are using these unlocked packages. A lot of iterative and modular development that can be done with the unlocked packages there.
That's awesome. But Satya, with this also brings up one of the gaps I see with developer experience on the Salesforce platform. Metadata is great, and you can make customizations, you can write code and deploy them as metadata into various environments like Scratch orgs, your sandboxes, and production orgs, etc. But not every type of customization in Salesforce is exposed as metadata or available via the metadata API. So as a developer, how do you think I or my developer should go about it?
Yeah, you were talking about metadata, and this metadata is what which comes in your um, when you package the systems. Let me again relate it to my packaging earlier. Okay, so whatever packages you create, they will be stored in the form of the metadata, and
Okay.
this metadata can be deployed in your environments there. You can see in your unlock packages, as I said earlier. So you can create the code in your version control here and deploy it into your scratch ops, test it, and again you can check into your version controller whatever you want to do, and then you can package it and you can deploy it on any of these orgs there,
Wow, that's a
right?
really good presentation and slide where you're showcasing Satya. And with that, just me let a quick reminder to our participants: if you're having problems viewing the slides Satya is showcasing or having problems with your audio, please exit and join back this webinar again. Thank you.
Right.
Please continue, Satya.
Yeah, and you can change sets are still supported if you want to do some change sets in like in your version one. So you can use your change sets and you can directly deploy in your sandbox, and from there you can integrate and put it in the full sandbox, whatever way you want to do. This change set still works there, and this packaging, as I said, is the newer version which is more beneficial. So I suggest all our developers to try it. Okay, and you are also talking about the metadata, Sushma, and I understand your problem. So you want to check what are the different metadata that are available in your org, which you can use in your APS. In your maybe you are developing a mobile application or whatever, where you are using this metadata. Now you want to check what are the different metadata that are supported. So what you need to do is you only need to open your URL. You can see there is a URL I've just listed here called access URL. You can open your URL and then you can suffix it with md coverage /report.jsp. It is going to give you a complete list of metadata that is currently available in your org.
Satya, what you just said makes the life of my developers so easy, because now we have one source of truth that the developers have to go to, and they can find all the information that they need.
Right. And one more important thing which I want to specify about metadata is, so while you use the metadata, okay, so one more important thing, as I said, is earlier when you want to share the metadata, so it was mandatory that you give the modify all data permission to the users.
Okay.
With that, what happens is you are exposing your data, your business data, to the developers. Now, you need not really worry about it. So you can share your metadata without sharing your business data. So the only thing you're going to do is you got a new permission here, which you can see at the bottom, called modify metadata. It's still in beta. It's still in beta. So you can just check that. If that is checked, then your data will not be shared. Only metadata will be shared with the developers.
Satya, you looks like you just read my mind, because that was just something that I was about to ask. That is there a way that to give access to metadata without providing access to org data? So that answers my question. Thank you so very much for that.
Okay, Sushma. I believe because this time we are constrained by the time, I just want to talk hours together with about our summer 18 release now, but because we are constrained with the time, so maybe did I answer? I hope I answered your questions there.
Sure, Satya. Thank you so very much for all the wonderful insights and taking us through the great features that summer 18 has release has got for us. And you've also addressed some of the challenges that our developers are facing with the previous release. And I hope our participants benefited and enjoyed this webinar as much as I did. So with this, we now open the session for a question and answer session, and I now request Shashank to take over. Thank you, everybody.
All right, that was amazing. A lot of information. Thank you so much, guys. Sushma and Satya, you've been super duper helpful for us. And with that, with the amount of time we have, let's see how many questions we can answer. Are you ready, Satya?
Yeah.
So you're done with Sushma. Now it's the turn of our attendees to bug you with questions.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to take any?
You can ask any of the questions.
Okay. So does Lightning record form support success error callbacks?
Yeah, in fact, it supports. As I said, you can write a handler for it. You can write handler for it, and it supports. In fact, it supports. Yeah.
Okay, it does support that. Right. Okay. Any other questions?
So you can ask any question.
So is there a search supported in the data table now, like a search bar that can search on all records?
I don't think so at the moment, but maybe in future. But you can search in general for the page, but at the data table level.
Okay. So with few additions to Lightning data table, do we now have pagination support by any chance?
Pagination, I don't think it is still, but you can control the number of columns that can be displayed, and you can also control the scrolling of the columns. You can scroll through the columns, scroll through the records of the data table there. Yeah.
Okay. So in Lightning navigation, does the target component replace just the source component or the entire screen?
So when I say Lightning navigation, so you are going to move away from one component to the other component. When you navigate, you in fact leave the source component and you are getting into the target component. Now, whatever you work, you are working on the target component there. So it could be a page or it could be a custom component. You are moving away from the source component and getting into the target component. Does that answer your question, Seshan?
It definitely answers mine. I hope it also answered the person who actually posted it. So there was one more question about now that there is navigation features and stuff that came out, do we still need the eventing and communication functionality in Salesforce?
We don't require, but if you want, you can still use it. If you want to use any of the old event handling mechanisms, you are still free to use that. But with this new component, you don't require.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah. If you're talking about navigation, since we have a navigation feature, you can use that instead of events. But at the same time, events are mainly for communication between components. And one thing to note is that when there are 2-3 components on the same page, this navigation will not help them communicate. Right. So that is one use case where you will still be using events, because that is how they talk.
Right, Shashank. That's where the other events come play a vital role.
All right. So there is some interesting Visualforce based questions. From list view, can we navigate to Visualforce page using this Lightning navigation API?
You can navigate to any page, but yeah, you want to navigate to a page which is having Visualforce page there, a component which is having Visualforce page, which means you are using a custom component in which you are placing the Visualforce page. So obviously you can navigate to it.
Perfect. Okay, so there are some questions around validation and validation rules in record form. So how does that work? Or, does it come with profile settings and data security and validation rules and stuff?
Yeah, when you use these record forms, the validation rules, the basic validations are in place. So if you make any changes which are not valid there, it automatically throws an error. You really need not worry about it.
And from what I know, I think it also respects profile level security, yes, and sharing rules and all those things.
It runs in the user mode.
Security is built into our record form.
Right. It runs in the user mode. Yep.
All right. Okay. So so there are some questions around the fact that you can actually use multiple columns in the record form. Instead, can we make them tabs?
I'm not really very sure about it, but yeah, at least you can make multiple columns there. Yeah. So maybe you can embed more Lightning components to make it in the tabs format.
So yeah. one workaround I can think of this is use the record view form maybe twice instead of once and put it on each of the tabs and just choose which fields you want to show on each of the tabs.
Yeah,
and that can take care of it.
That can be a workaround. Yeah.
But as of now, there is no inbuilt tab functionality inside the data table, right. Record form, right? Okay. Okay, let's see if we have some more interesting questions here that we can pick from. Okay, so quickly, what is the new Apex code limit?
It is 6 MB. As I said, so earlier when you write the classes, you cannot write a class of size beyond 3 MB. Okay, now it is 6 MB. Double, always double means a lot of things can be done with the Apex code there, isn't it, Shashank?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, so there's one question around how unlocked packages are different from managed packages. So let me give you a little background of why we came up with second generation packaging and unlocked packages. So we always had packaging in the world of Salesforce, right? There were managed packages and there were unmanaged packages. They are still there, of course. Managed packages are obviously used by App Exchange partners and ISVs who are building applications on the platform, and you just install them and use them. You don't have control of it as a customer. But the partner who built it, they have full control. They can upgrade versions and stuff automatically and stuff. So versioning is a very big advantage there, and also security, which is unique to managed packages. But when you talk about unmanaged packages,
unlocked packages.
So when you talk about unmanaged packages, you don't have that flexibility, but still you have the flexibility of putting everything together in one package.
Yes.
But we are going ahead into the future, right? We are going into what we are calling the fourth industrial revolution and all those good stuff. So we need something for the future. That is the reason we started building second generation packaging model. Right. And part of that, we have built, we initially built something called developer control packages, which gives the control to a developer, the same level of control that a partner would have on a managed package. So these developer control packages have the flexibility of versioning and all those things where they can automatically upgrade versions of the package and stuff, unlike unmanaged packages.
Now they are renamed.
Now they are renamed to unlocked packages. Yeah, right. It's just a renaming. It's the same feature, but a little more enhancements added and stuff to make it better. So unlocked packages are kind of a combination of good stuff from managed packages and unmanaged packages that developers can basically use and control. I hope that answers the question. So how about debugging Apex using VS Code? Are there any limits and stuff? So how does debugging work in VS Code? Apex.
We can debug Apex in VS Code. In fact, we can replay the debug logs. We can get the older debug logs, and then we can replay the debug logs. While we replay the debug logs, we can also set the breakpoints in our Apex code. And when we click on replay, it is going to stop at that particular breakpoint, and it is also going to show off the state of the object. With that, you know where it broke, and then you can fix the things, and then again you can build it and deploy it. Yeah.
Okay. So simple answer to some of the questions around how do you move metadata across environments is that with the packaging model, you're not actually moving it across environments. You are moving it from a version control system to any environment that you want to. You can basically define the path. You don't have to, like in chain sets, you don't have to go through a sandbox and then bigger sandbox and then into production. You can just the source of truth, basically the center of everything, is the version control system that you have control of. You can, from there, you can package it and post it, put it into a developer sandbox or a full copy sandbox, a UAT environment, a production or another production or wherever you want. Is that right, Satya?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we have infinity scroll into the table that is already discussed. So can we navigate to more than one component? I don't think so, right?
No.
You can just
So
navigate
you can navigate to one component.
And I don't really know why you would need to navigate to more than one component.
I also don't see any reason why you want to navigate to.
Yeah, but that's a good, interesting question. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if you have any other interesting questions.
And while you get to other questions, Shashank, I want to add something to our developers as well. Now you guys can refer to the components that are existing using your Lightning component library, which is now generally available. From your org's URL, you can get into the Lightning component library, which has a lot of documentation. You also can find examples and also the specifications of those components in the component library. So I would suggest developers to go and check the component library as well. Yeah.
Okay, so one question around does Lightning record form support pick lists and lookups and all these types of fields?
Yeah, it supports all the types of fields there.
Okay, so that's one there. So so there is another one question around can we navigate to standard existing components instead of the components that we have built for using this navigation? So for example, the target component being something standard, a standard URL instead of a new custom component.
As I said in my discussion, any component, if you want to navigate to that component has to be addressable. And that can be done only by implementing the URL addressable interface. If you implement the URL addressable interface, then you can navigate. So if you want to navigate to older components, probably you need to edit its code and then add that interface. Then you should be able to navigate to that component. Does that answer your question?
It definitely answers mine. Yeah. Okay, so I think we are pretty much over time already, but I hope we were able to answer some of the mostly asked questions, repeat questions, and questions that were more relevant to the content. And if you think your question has not been answered, you can always feel free to post it on our developer forums. And you can probably tweet us as well if you want to, and we'll also see if we can share these questions later. So for people who are wondering about the recording and slides and stuff, we will be posting it soon on the same page that you used for the registration. And there is also a link that you see on the page there under the Q&A section on the screen. It says bit.ly/webinar in APAC. So you can stay in touch with us and find recordings of our older webinars and find the timetable schedule and stuff of our future webinars as well on that page, and you can get all the latest information. Feel free to join that chatter. It's chatter group on our Trailblazer community. Feel free to join that.
Yeah.
And there will be a survey that we are going to receive shortly, asking for your feedback. Feel free to let us know what you thought about them, how we can improve, what is working, what is not, and stuff like that. What you liked, what kind of things you want to see in the future, or something like that. And if you want to present, you can always feel free to reach out to us whenever you want. And so Satya, before say thank you, I'm wondering where they can learn further. I heard there's this thing called Trailhead that's helpful.
Yeah, I love Trailhead. In fact, I've learned a lot from Trailhead, and Trailhead is consistently being updated. So whenever we get a release, we can also see those things getting updated in our Trailhead content. So I suggest you guys go back and whatever concept you want to learn, you have almost all the concepts that are being trained through Trailhead. So that is the one best channel, Shashank, to learn the platform. Yeah.
I'm definitely sure it is, because I have learned a lot from Trailhead. A lot of the features that we spoke about, I think you did some research. You even used Trailhead for some research for your
Right. I used it a lot. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today, and a special thank you to Sushma and Satya, who took us through a lot of knowledge that they wanted to share with us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Shashank. Thank you, participants.
All right, guys. Until next time, see you.